welcome to the second module of the Game Changers course. We're really getting into the thick of it now.
We are. The rubber hits the road during these sessions,
Absolutely.
so we're really going to get into this.
Really excited about getting this far into the course. So this is the module that covers our personal journey of growth, our personal growth journey. This is where we look at our self-awareness and understanding ourselves more. So concepts and models that are really going to help us within our self-awareness and our self-understanding.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's four elements to our self that we want to talk about today. And the first one is our body, our physical body, our arms, our legs, our organs inside the body and so forth. And it's got to do with basically our physical health. And, as a remedial therapist, I've been working with people and their health for like 30 years now, and it's interesting to see how all of the body parts all kind of work together and how important they are. And so if I can give you maybe a couple of tips just to start with in regards to your physical health, and then I'm going to challenge you to write down some of your own goals there. We talked before about the what, so what, and now what. We're going to do that in a moment. But let's go through our health for a moment. I work on a lot of people with physical injuries, dealing with pain, dealing with mobility issues, and often they flow off into other physical and even sometimes mental issues as well. So if our physical body isn't in good shape, then often that can affect our mental health and other aspects of our emotional health as well. And so a couple of things is we need to exercise. You got to keep physically moving. And, just going to work and, moving furniture or building a house, that sort of physical movement's not necessarily what I mean. Even just going out for a walk, getting fresh air, movement, our body is designed to actually move. And it's amazing how when we do that, it really does have a great positive impact on our mental and emotional well-being as well. And the second thing that is really positive for us to do is just make sure we're drinking plenty of water as well. We get into these habits, don't we, of the caffeine habits, the coffee and the tea and the Coke and soft drinks and the alcohol and those sorts of things. It's like everything in moderation, but water is something you cannot have enough of, particularly when 60 to 70% of your body is water and it needs to constantly be replenished. And so good exercise, fresh air, keeping your body healthy, and of course the obvious one is good diet as well. Now I'm not going to go into which diet's the best and which one's the worst. There are plenty of them out there. But if one of your goals is to simply lose weight and to get into better shape, or maybe even improve your mental health, diet has a really big impact on that. Lose a little bit of weight. Go out there and just do a bit of walking and get yourself moving and set yourself a goal to do that. So now's your turn to push the pause button here. Now we're going to push pause in a moment, and I want you to open up your book to the body quadrant and write down what is maybe a health goal that you might do to help you physically, your physical well-being and health, and analyze how that's going to make you feel, what you're going through, and most important of all is now what? What are you going to change in your life in order to help improve your physical health? And maybe it's going to see a doctor or a physiotherapist or remedial therapist like myself, or changing your diet. There's all sorts of different ways we can achieve that. So let's write those goals down, and we're about to hit pause.
We should have some great reflections there of how you're going with looking after your body, the first quadrant of what it means to be human. You should have some really good strategies there to implement moving forward for your exercise, your diet, your nutrition. It's fantastic, Lauren. Thank you for your wealth of information and experience.
And we can communicate more about that on our community forum too, can't we? If you're looking for any ideas or support or things that might help your situation, then get onto the Facebook page and we can talk more about each of these quadrants there.
Absolutely.
As well.
Now, moving on, the second quadrant in our quadrants of self, what it means to be human, is our soul, okay, body, and now we've got soul. This is our emotions, our feelings, okay? And see, the thing about feelings, Lauren, a lot of the time, is that we only have kind of 4 feelings that we use, particularly in children, you see this. And us as guys, we really struggle as men to kind of put our feelings into words. We really struggle with identifying our feelings. So often we've just got good, bad, sad, or mad, and that's
That's it.
that's it. That's all we've got. So
How you feel today, mate? Oh, yeah, I'm good.
yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm okay, or or so many different feelings can come out as anger. So a great example I like to use is feeling stupid. If I'm confused and something doesn't make sense and I'm starting to feel stupid, well, that can come out as anger. Well, in a classroom setting, how does a teacher respond to an angry student?
Or a parent to a child, for that matter, at home.
And what is it? It's discipline, isn't it? It's correction and discipline. But that young person feeling stupid, what they actually need is help.
That's right, because they weren't feeling mad.
No.
They were feeling a bit stupid or a bit confused.
Right.
It's a plea for help. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But if we don't really understand, if we're not really super healthy in this quadrant of ourself, well, then different feelings can come out and can be expressed in a really unhelpful and unhealthy way. So I've got a pack of feelings cards you can purchase on my website, which has a great deal of content in the brochure that comes with it. Plus, there are over 50 feelings categorized into those 4 categories. So
it's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's interesting to look at those different feelings too, because it really does help you to kind of look into yourself too, and maybe give you some clarity on what it is you are feeling, because it is hard for us to put our finger on that.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Now, feelings are triggered by external events. If you want to write that down, that would be something great to write down, that feelings are always triggered by something external, which means we're not our feelings, Lauren. If something in me is being triggered by something external, it's going to be temporary, it's going to be fleeting, it's going to be momentary, it won't last forever, because the next thing that comes along that triggers a different feeling is going to pull me out of that feeling and into another feeling. It's external. So I am not my feelings.
And I'm sure now what's going to happen next is you're going to give us an example of what you're talking about.
Well,
just so that we understand.
Absolutely. So for example, if someone does something that makes me angry, I'm going to be angry until someone does something that makes me not angry anymore. That's just how it works. They're triggered by something external.
I've got a packet of donuts here, Josh. Would you like that?
Wow, all of a sudden I'm feeling good.
Doesn't that happen? It's true. Those outside influences can immediately turn us from feeling sad to happy, or to scared, or to excited, depending on what's going on around us.
Right. The interesting thing about feelings is that they're visitors. I like to call them visitors. So they come to our front door and they knock. And how we respond from this point on is really up to us. Now, I'm not saying we can control what feelings come knocking. We can't. Often, because they're triggered by external events, we can't predict. I had the death of a best friend just recently, and that triggered some fairly loud and deep emotions, some really, really loud feelings in me. And I can't control that happened. That's not within my realm of control. So let's talk about when a feeling comes knocking. What options do you have? And this is language that I like to use in the programs that I run with young people, but it's so handy to know this even as adults. So obviously the first response we have is to calm and see what feeling is knocking, and that's happiness, and we can slam the door in its face. We can say, nope, we treat it like a salesperson, or right? And we slam the door in their face and we say, no way, mate. And we are really good at doing that to positive feelings when we don't want positive feelings, My my son who doesn't like to be tickled, if I'm trying to have a bit of a game with him, a bit of fun with him, and he's not in the mood, he's not interested in laughing. And not, that can be with any kind of game. I could tell a joke, and if he's not in the mood, no, Dad, he slams the door in the face of that happiness. But that same joke, when he's in a better mood, can make him laugh. So
I've heard your jokes though, Josh, and they're not always that funny.
Fair enough. Good call. Good call. So
that's true. It's interesting though too, and it just made me thinking there, Josh, that one thing is for certain, that those feelings do come and they do go.
Yeah.
Don't they? They will knock on the door, but they do eventually leave, and whether that be grief or whether it be happiness or whatever it is. And so
right.
It's not, if you are feeling those negative feelings, don't despair. They're not there forever. They do pass.
Now, the second option, or the second response we can have when a feeling comes knocking, is we can invite them in and say, oh, come on in, I've been waiting for you. I've got the guest bedroom all made up for you. You can stay for months if you want. I've got 3 months of frozen meals in the freezer for you. Come and stay as long as you want. And how many of us know someone who treats feelings like that? A few people come to mind where they're very welcoming of particularly negative feelings, and really happy to have a negative feeling come and stay for a very long period of time. And that's obviously not healthy either. And so the third response, which is a response I like to advise people to try and have, is a response where you invite them in for a cold glass of water to acknowledge that they're there and that they're present, but then say, you know what, I have a busy day today. I've got to get back to life. So I'm sorry to ask you to leave, but I have to ask you to leave because I have to get back to all my activities that I have for the day. And so that's a really important step. You see, slamming the door in the face of feelings can often leave us feeling like we haven't acknowledged the feeling, particularly in a situation where I was going through some grief. You certainly don't want to slam the door in the face of sadness when someone that you love has just died. So that can't be a healthy expression, but allowing that grief to come in and wipe me out for 3 months is not particularly healthy either. So how can I acknowledge that feeling? How can I move through that feeling, but in a way that I'm also still able to function? And of course, now we're starting to get in the realm of being emotionally healthy.
Josh, I think it's time for them to write a few things down in their book.
Excellent. So what I have for you to do right now is write down some feelings that maybe you struggle to ask to leave when it's their time to leave. So these are some feelings that when they come, they tend to stay, they tend to move in and live there for a while. Let's write down some feelings right now that stay longer than maybe is emotionally healthy. We're going to hit that pause button.
Here we go.
Pause.
Well, you should have written down some of those feelings now that you're wanting to contain and work on and improve. But our third quadrant is our mind. A really important part of our self, isn't it? Our mind. It's where all of our thinking occurs. And what is it that really sits over that thinking? It's the information that we have, our beliefs, what we've learned. We think of what we've gathered as we've grown up, what our parents taught us, what we learned at school or university. Perhaps it also is to do with our political or our religious beliefs as well. And of course, all of us have a whole range of different beliefs and things that govern our thinking, how we process that information around us, and how those thoughts impact our lives as well. And so what I want you to do now is open up your books to this quadrant of mind and think about, are there any perhaps unhealthy thoughts or some misbeliefs that we maybe need to modify or correct? Or on the other end of the scale, perhaps there are some new information or perhaps a course of study or self-improvement in that regard that you would like to pursue in order to improve your capacity of mind. And so let's hit that pause button now. 3, 2, 1, Josh. Pause.
job on writing down some of those misbeliefs, some of those unhealthy thinking patterns that really aren't helping us, that we need to shift a little. That's fantastic. So again, some of this stuff, it's a journey, and we're asking you to trust the process, and we'll deal with some of this stuff in the sessions to come. So the final quadrant, the fourth quadrant of what it means to be human, is our spirit, or our values. So this is our human spirit, the thing that, really is the thing that makes us human. I think of sci-fi movies, Lauren, when, aliens come to visit Earth, and the thing that they don't understand is our empathy, is our loyalty, is our love, is our sympathy, right? It's our honor, and so it's these virtues as part of what it means to be human that transcends our mind and our intellect. It transcends our body and our diet and our exercise, and of course it's got nothing to do with our feelings or our emotions. So I like to use courage as an example. It's a fantastic virtue that we all need more of, but try right now, try to flex your courage muscle in your physical body. Well, you can't. It's not a muscle, it's not an organ, it's not something a surgeon can go in and remove from you or implant, so it's not part of our body. Okay, well, maybe try feeling it. Just right now, just feel some
courage.
Well, you can't. It's not a feeling, it's not an emotion. Okay, think it up then, right? Everyone, use your minds right now and just think up some courage. Well, of course, you can't, right? We're being a bit silly here, but it's trying to make the point that this is not part of the other three aspects of what it means to be you. This is a fourth dimension of what it means to be human, and it's a dimension that dwells within our human spirit, and this is our values, the things that we value. Of course, the problem with the word values is we can value anything. I can value McDonald's, and that's going to take me down a certain
pathway,
a certain nutrition pathway. I can value my car, and we all know people that have an intense love affair with their car, and that they really value their car. So I like to polish my car once a month, and I certainly value my car. Something that I value, though, is my lawn. I love a good lawn. So we can value anything. So this quadrant is not about anything that you choose to value. No, this is about our virtues, our human virtues. And so again, just like the feelings cards, I have a pack of virtues cards, and we're up to 56 human virtues, Lauren. Things like courage, commitment, determination, tenacity. Love is a value, and we're going to be talking about love in a session in the next module, in the interpersonal module, because love is one of the few aspects of life that covers multiple quadrants. It's not just a value, it's also a feeling, and it's also a belief, and it's also in our body. So there's some interesting stuff here, but what's really special about these virtues is that they're already inside of us. Just like that potential castle, it's already there, but maybe we don't explore certain aspects of it. Well, these virtues can be either strong or weak, but they're all there. We all have the capacity for unconditional love. We all have the capacity for empathy and for courage, although some of us are more courageous than others, and some of us are too courageous, Lauren.
That's right. Some of us are very warrior-like, and others are a little bit more passive and peaceful. We're the peacemakers, and we are all different. And so those virtues that Josh has been talking about will be stronger in different people. And you'll have virtues that are stronger within you as well. But nevertheless, they are all evident in our lives. And it's interesting as we're talking about these four quadrants, Josh. There's four of them, and it's not like we should be just pushing one of them and not giving attention to the others. There is somewhat of an overlap between these two, and we need to make sure that, our physical, our body health, here, imagine like these as four thermometers. We don't want one to be skyrocketing up to 100 degrees and the others all be sitting down in the negative temperatures. We want them all to be in a healthy place.
So coming back to emotional health, what it means to be emotionally healthy is that each quadrant, Lauren, is responsible for a different aspect of life. And there's no bleed happening in terms of one quadrant moving outside of its quadrant. And let me give you an example. If I was to sit down with someone who had a very different belief structure to me, okay, and we were to get into a debate about something we really disagree with one another on a beliefs level. Now, this might be a political conversation, it might be a religious conversation. I can imagine that conversation could get very heated.
Oh yeah, if you get the old right and the far left in the same room, they're gonna kill each other.
Right, but interestingly enough, the family and friends of both of those individuals would probably describe them as being kind, and empathetic and sympathetic and humble and self-aware, all of these virtues. So what's happening there when we're acting outside of our character or when we're operating a little unhealthily within our emotional health? Well, using this model, these 4 quadrants of self, I'd like to suggest that person's beliefs are operating outside of their belief quadrant. Let me explain what I mean. The body is there to govern our health.
Yes.
Okay? Our mind is there, our beliefs are there to govern our thinking. Our feelings are visitors and are triggered by external events. And our values, our virtues within our human spirit are there to govern our behavior, our actions, our choices. And so this kind, empathetic person who's suddenly aggressive and angry and accusational is allowing his beliefs to govern his behavior, which is not the job of a belief. The job of a belief is not to govern our behavior. Neither is the job of a feeling. Our feelings are great for intuition. Our feelings are fantastic to intuit where we should go and where we shouldn't go. Our feelings are fantastic for connection and intimacy. But when it comes to what choice am I going to make here? How am I going to treat someone else? Ordinarily, I'm kind. Am I going to continue to be kind here, or am I going to be quite aggressive and accusational and decrease in my level of kindness? Well, that shouldn't be the job of my beliefs or my feelings. That should only be the job of my virtues. So if we can get really good at this, when we are apprised with a new situation and suddenly we find ourselves in a situation, we can stop and say, are my beliefs in control of my behavior right now? Are my feelings in control of my behavior right now? Or are my virtues in control of my behavior? And if our virtues are not in control of our behavior, well, maybe we need to stop and we need to say, what are my virtues? Well, we've got an activity coming up very shortly, Lauren, where we're going to map out our values. Right now, in this values quadrant, I'm hoping you'll take a couple of minutes just to write down what are your values. Now, I'm talking about these character virtues. What do you think makes you up? Who are you at a character level? Just start to write down some of the virtues that are the most important to you, and we'll come back in a moment. We're ready to hit that pause button, Lauren.
Here we go.
Pause.
4 quadrants of self. You now understand yourself a little bit better, I hope, after what we've just been through. But, it made me think, Josh, as you were talking about that before, that, our physical health really has such a big impact, doesn't it, on our overall well-being, our emotions, our thinking. You think of the person that gets up in the morning and they're crabby and they're irritable. It's like, well, did you think it's probably because they maybe have a sore, tight, stiff neck, they're in pain, or maybe they didn't sleep too well.
I guess you see a lot of that.
Yeah, I see a heap of that every day of my life.
Yeah.
And, so I should add that too with your physical health. Don't forget, sleep really is another important part of that, isn't it? So, look, there's some great things to process there. And Josh, I believe you have a really interesting analogy that might be helpful just to help us integrate this.
Well, we're just hoping that this provides you with some scaffolding, and that's the kind of analogy I want to use. Without scaffolding, builders can really only build kind of one story high. Like, I really can only build so far without scaffolding, but the scaffolding itself doesn't build the building. So this is great scaffolding for you. It's a fantastic metaphor to use, because without an understanding of these 4 quadrants, and without understanding that each quadrant has an important role to play, but when they try to play each other's roles, it gets really emotionally unhealthy. That's fantastic scaffolding for you to know. But just knowing it is not enough. If you don't do anything with this model, with this concept, well, of course, it's not going to build your emotional health on its own, just like scaffolding doesn't build the building. You are the builder. You need to build your emotional health. But this is fantastic scaffolding to go around the emotional health journey that you're on. And I hope you find this really useful.
And along with that, Josh, I think that goes back to what I was mentioning earlier about these 4 quadrants are like a thermometer. They each need to come up together. And you might find that, maybe you're really strong in the mind, the academics and the beliefs, and you've got really strong health or strong views in that point, but yet maybe your emotional health isn't quite as good, or your physical health is sort of lagging behind. So our final invitation for you today, and in your workbooks there, is to look at your 4 quadrants of self and identify. You've obviously identified some sub-goals that you'd like to achieve in each of those areas, but which one of those perhaps really needs your attention and priority right now? One that's sitting down here a bit closer to 0 needs a little bit of encouragement to get up again. And, it might put you out of your comfort zone a little to do this, but really important to increase your physical, mental, your social, your soul and feelings, and also finally, and probably most importantly, it sits almost at the top of this hierarchy, is your spiritual values that really govern our lives. We look forward to taking you to the next step in our journey together, and we wish you all the best now as you start working on some of those goals. See you later on.